Captain Janeway says that there's 3 rules for being a Star Trek captain. Keep your shirt tucked in, go down with the ship, never leave a crew member behind. That last one about never leaving a crew member behind is something I think about every day. I'm here to say, okay, we're going to find you a place to contribute to an airplane that we started making before you were born. That's tough sometimes to figure out how to include people, but if we don't do it, we don't have a future.
Well, hello. I'm your host today, Kerrie Greenfelder, SWE President-Elect of the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome to Diverse. It's the SWE podcast. So I'm sure you've been listening to Diverse for a while, and you probably know that this is not the only Star Trek episode that's come up, but today we have a very special guest that is going to share some leadership lessons from Star Trek. I know over the years we've heard about Star Trek and how it's inspired careers in STEM. Our guest today, Kim Burton, is going to share even more details to help inspire you and keep you in STEM. And so we're going to explore a little bit about what engineers can learn about leadership, decision making, and a little bit of teamwork. And she's going to tell us from the perspective of the Star Trek show and how those lessons can apply to us right here on planet Earth. And so Kim Burton, Engineering Director with Textron Aviation, is also a private pilot, a lifelong SWE member, and a very devout Star Trek fan. We're recording today live here at WE25 in the Diverse Podcast Studio, which is on site at SWE's annual conference in New Orleans. You may hear the buzz in the background. The career fair was just lined up down the hall about half a mile. And we have so many attendees here, you can just feel the buzz in the air. And so I want to get into the podcast today, but first, Kim, this is such a unique topic, and I'm excited to dive in. And so welcome to Diverse.
Well, Kerrie, thank you for having me. I am so excited to be on the podcast and really enjoying the conference so far.
All right, well, I want to dive into a little bit of your background, Kim. So you have a STEM background. Again, I mentioned Engineering Director with Textron Aviation. What inspired you to connect Star Trek and the just iconic captains in Star Trek with leadership lessons in engineering?
A couple things. I think a lot of engineers say that they are inspired by Star Trek. The series that I am talking about the most is Star Trek Voyager with Captain Janeway. It was the first Star Trek franchise to have a woman captain. It aired from 1995 to 2001, so I would have been 15 to 21. That's my formative years. I mean, that's when I was picking a major, so it had to have gone into this. And I remember when I was a teenager, my sister and I would always watch Star Trek Next Generation with Captain Picard, and they were ending that series and we were really sad about it. And then we found out that they were going to have a new Star Trek. It was Voyager, and with a woman captain, and the world was, oh my gosh, what's happening? There was an early episode where even the crew was like, Janeway, do we call you sir, ma'am? And she just said, how about captain?
Love
I
it.
still remember this. So that might have inspired me. I know that there are a percentage of women who maybe don't want to go into engineering because they're worried they'll be the only woman. And there's a percentage of women who hear that it's challenging, hear that they might be a minority, and they're like, wait, that's why there should be more of us. I think that had a huge impact on me when I was a teenager.
I love all of this. And just to give her a little bit of airtime, what is her full name? It's not just Captain, it's
Kathryn Janeway.
Kathryn
Yes.
Janeway. Well, I know for decades Star Trek has had just a variety of captains. And if you've watched the show, they have just incredibly diverse crews. And these crews have to get into some very high stakes missions. And so maybe from your perspective as an engineering director, I'm sure there's some parallels, right? What do you see in commanding a starship and maybe leading teams here on Earth?
The biggest parallel I see is that it takes all types. You think that an alien show where they're out in space running into different species is going to be about aliens, but it's about the crew coming together to solve all these problems. In Star Trek Discovery, which is a newer Star Trek, they have a Captain Michael Burnham who says something really memorable to her crew that I will never forget. She's trying to get everybody on the same page, and she says, if we can't communicate with each other, what chance are we going to have to communicate with the rest of them? So much of engineering is about communication, about being able to report out to everybody what your idea is, why it works, what are the risks, what do you need help with. It's not something anybody can do in a bubble. I see that time and time again. Communication skills make or break a career.
Oh, I love this. And maybe tie it to Star Trek. What is one of your kind of favorite episodes where maybe they had a high-stakes mission and they really had to tie into that communication skill?
Captain Janeway is known as the captain who takes on the Borg. It's a species that tries to create cyborgs, put computer implants into any planet that they run into, and assimilate entire species and just take away all of their individuality. She beams straight onto a Borg cube in an episode to take on the Borg Queen and challenge her because they've discovered a, like, quote, virus that'll give everybody their individuality back. And the Borg Queen is so threatened by this that she's willing to self-destruct her ship. And Janeway almost goes down with that ship. Beams out just in time. So she's not afraid of high stakes and doing it herself. Now, she has her team with her. She has her chief engineer, B'Elanna Torres, who is brilliant, who's got the virus to deploy. She's got her Vulcan security officer, Tuvok. So she's not alone, but she's also not afraid, which is great.
Oh, I love that. Well, let's switch gears a little bit, but maybe stick a little to some of that uncertainty and what's next. So engineering leaders, we have to deal with uncertainty all the time, whether that's tight deadlines, technical risks, even just some of those unexpected challenges that you might have. How do you think Star Trek captains, maybe Captain Janeway, am I getting it right?
Yeah.
I'm learning as we go here, folks. So how do Star Trek captains model effective decision-making under those, really intense pressures? And how can our listeners apply those principles?
I think Star Trek captains, like many of us, they follow a process that we all kind of use. You assess your situation, make a decision, and execute. In the pilot community, we are constantly taught that, if something's going wrong with the airplane, there could be parts falling off the airplane, and you are there to fly the parts that are left. You assess the situation, and you know that you're going to aviate, navigate, communicate. Those are your three most important things. Do not be distracted by a fuel light going off and forget to watch your airspeed and let it get too low. We know what happens when you don't focus on what's important. There is piloting in Star Trek, so it carries over. A lot of the military lessons also carry over. So it's that whole culture of let's assess the situation, accept the reality we're in. Don't spend too much time wishing that the past was different or that our challenges were smaller. What can we change? What can we not change? And take steps forward.
Oh, I love that answer. And, as you were talking about being a pilot and, facing some of these challenges and how you stay focused, I have to wonder, too, are you sometimes flying in your plane wishing you were doing an Enterprise?
In space? It's kind of funny. I went into engineering because I love my physics class. And so, yes, I think so many engineers look at space as like, let's go conquer everything. But the truth is, none of my friends who went into the space industry have gotten to rent and fly the space shuttle. I hate to say it, that's a perk of airplanes. It's really easy to get yourself to 6,000 feet. And nobody is getting themselves light years away. So I have no second thoughts about the career that I landed into. I absolutely love flying.
Love it. Well, we'll say not now, but not never. So we'll get there one day.
I love to think that someday we will learn how to warp space around us like the Star Trek Enterprise and Voyager and all of those spaceships do. Yes, and get to the far reaches of the galaxy.
That's awesome. All right, I want to switch a bit of gears here and just, talk a bit about just the crew. You mentioned already the diverse crew that they have, and, every show is a little bit different, but, a lot of folks love that about the Star Trek shows and this diversity, and really no matter what their background is, where they came from, everyone contributed in their own way and always in a strong way. What do you think engineering leaders can learn from this about fostering inclusion and belonging on their teams?
That's a great question. The reason I love Star Trek better than other science fiction franchises is because there aren't really any superheroes. There's not one character that's going to save everything. There's no blood test to see that you're going to be the best member of a crew or the one that's going to be able to, restore some mythical balance to the whole galaxy. Everybody just has to step up and be who they are. And different episodes and situations will highlight different strengths. B'Elanna Torres, the chief engineer on the Voyager, is half Klingon. This makes her a little tougher than some others. She's got kind of a temper. I like to think that it's not even because she's half Klingon. I like to think that engineers are just tough and that she would be herself no matter what her genetics are. And they kind of point to that a little bit. I think I've got evidence to support it.
I think it's a fact.
Yes.
No.
Don't mess with us.
Well, all the different members of the crew have to report up to a captain, and it has been very diverse over the years. So maybe to cause a bit of a stir for some of the Trekkies that are out there listening, who's the best captain? Who's your favorite? And tell us why.
Well, obviously Captain Janeway. Oh, this is so tough. The new Star Trek Discovery has a Captain Georgiou, who is outstanding, played by actress Michelle Yeoh. So she's just a great character to watch. There's a couple different versions of her because it's Star Trek, and so we get different timelines and parallel universes and things happen to her, and then she comes back and stuff like that. She has some amazing traits, but Janeway was very consistent throughout the years, took on some really tough situations. She was there for my formative years, so she's going to be my favorite Star Trek captain forever.
That's right. Well, throughout this episode already, I picked up on a few words that you've been using that really start to buzz for me in my brain about emotional intelligence. And so maybe is there a particular scene or is it an episode or one of the different captains that taught you something that you would say is memorable about emotional intelligence for leaders?
I did watch a lot of Next Generation growing up, and so that was the first series that introduced the Borg, that takes away everybody's individuality, assimilates them. And there's an episode where they bring one of the Borg back to himself, back to the ship. And he says when he's going to go back into the Borg to try to reinfiltrate, he's so scared. He says, I don't want to forget that I am Hugh, the person who I am. Voyager does it with Seven of Nine, who was a young woman who was assimilated when she was a child, and they bring her back. Seeing the importance of being yourself in every situation just highlights the need that we need to appreciate all the people on our team. And I've run into it as a leader too. I had an engineer who worked for me once where if you gave him a 1,000-page book and said, you need to review this, he would just calmly take page 1, page 2.
Let's do it.
And I don't have the patience. I need this summary. So you know what? It takes all types. Like, we are all going to bring what we have to the table. And that has helped me as a leader throughout my career, is to understand what everybody brings and appreciate it.
Oh, I love this, and I love how you've tied it all to Star Trek. Well, as we start to wrap up here, what would you like to leave to our listeners? Maybe 1 or 2 leadership lessons from the Star Trek universe, something that they can take back and, I think you say it, live long and prosper. What would you like to say?
The basis for my presentation that I'm doing at SWE 25 is a statement that Captain Janeway says that there's 3 rules for being a Star Trek captain. Keep your shirt tucked in, go down with the ship, never leave a crew member behind. That last one about never leaving a crew member behind is something I think about every day. Because if I am a multiplier, if I can include everybody, if I can think of creative ways to onboard new engineers who maybe they have no experience in the industry at all, and I'm here to say, okay, we're going to find you a place to contribute to an airplane that we started making before you were born. And it's had various iterations and a lot of updates, and we're going to keep it flying, and we're going to be proud of that, and you're going to be proud of the work you do. That's tough sometimes to figure out how to include people, but if we don't do it, we don't have a future. So making sure that we bring everybody with us, never leave a crew member behind, that's probably my one big thing I would take away.
Oh, Kim, I love that, and you've inspired me to be a better leader, and you've inspired me to watch a little more Star Trek. So any other closing thoughts that you want to add, or questions that I didn't ask you that you want to share with our listeners?
Just the value of coming to a SWE conference. If they've never been to this, we are having an amazing first day. We're about halfway through it, and I showed up here saying, oh my gosh, is my energy run out 4 hours into day 1? Is my voice shot? No, I feel great. Like, we're going to keep this going, and there's so much more to happen. So if people have never been to a SWE local and want to start there, that's easy. And if they want to come to Big SWE, as I call it, global, next year, then put it on the calendar now.
Well, Kim Burton, this has been so unique and inspiring and fun. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. From SWE 25, live here in the podcast studio, I just want to say thanks. Thanks to you, and thanks to all our listeners today.
Thank you so much for having me.